We're just waiting for Chris Kidawski. He's going to be going live. There he is. Hey, Chris Kidawski.
I'm great.
How are you
I'm
doing?
great. Anticipating this full moon that's going to be coming out, I think 6:08 p.m. Eastern time today. So just enjoying the energy. I felt
You
it this
feeling the full
morning,
moon
man, when I
already?
woke up. And I don't know if it's because of the new year or whatnot. I checked all my Sirius Joy stuff. Didn't really say too much, but typically when the full moon starts coming around, man, I can feel like negative energy abound. Like, I mean, it's just swirling. My mood changes, everything like that. And then all of a sudden it's the new year now. And I woke up this morning. I felt amazing. Great workout, great day of work so far. And just everybody here at the Kidawski household, we're all happy. And it's nice for a change rather than kind of like that mysterious negativity that's just floating around and everybody's on edge. So who knows? Maybe it's a different year, different stuff, but I like it.
So, Chris, I tell everybody that you know more about fascia than I do. And because you have a very technical aspect and you spend your time studying it, I know a lot about fascia, but I definitely spent my years perceiving it in a new way and learning how to program it. I consider you to be one of the best body workers in the world, but I'm also understanding that you are actually
Yeah.
almost retiring from body work.
I mean, you talk about Kurt Cobain, right? It's better to burn out than just fade away, right? And when we look at any type of body work profession, that career typically only lasts for about 3 years. And in my time, I've been doing it for 17 years. I know you were doing it for around 25. But in my time, the amount of body workers or physical therapists that I worked on, they were always just, they were fascinated by the amount of people that I would work on. For me, it was 40, 45 hours a week. And that was 1 hour, 40 to 45 1 hour sessions a week. My longest day, I think, went something like 11 sessions. And when you talk to a lot of body workers or people that go to Massage Envy, you're looking at maybe 15 hours of body work for the really busy body workers at Massage Envy or something like that. And, that was all word of mouth, working, driving to people's houses, people coming to my house. So I kind of had like a human garage room, but not exactly like a human garage apartment like you guys had. And then, you had all of your practitioners and everybody working under you, and you advised me not to do that. And I totally took it to heart because people wanted to pay for me to open a clinic, and then I would ask them, well, you're going to come in. Who are you going to want to see? The 60 practitioners and body workers that I just hired, or are you going to want to see me? And he's like, well, I would work with you, of course. All right. So it's like, okay, I'll open up a place and everybody will want to come in and work with me. And my practitioners are just going to do nothing. So I took your advice, didn't do that, and just started to make some different investments. And now body work is no longer a necessity. It's something that I reserve for just a few select clients in the area. But, on Instagram and through my books and whatnot, or YouTube, I'm still always willing to help somebody. If you've had unconquerable pain, and you're at the end of the rope, you don't know where else to go or what else to do, I'm always there for a quick answer for anything you need.
So yeah, I'm actually glad you did it. I mean, when I met you, I was actually moving out of the clinic. I decided in 2018 that I didn't want to be there, but it took till the middle part of 2019 to finally make it happen. I'm glad you didn't do it, and the reason why is because you're super talented, and you would have spent all of your energy and time managing people,
That's what
not
you told
learning the
me.
craft.
That's what
the
you
way
told me.
you
You
have.
told me that, and I don't know if you mind me sharing this or not, but you said that you went to work
Sure.
and you started to spite your coworkers because no matter what you explained to them, they were never going to understand what you did, and they were never going to implement it the way you wanted them to. And
You know, it took
It's
us a while to figure out why. Sorry, go ahead.
I completely understand that, because obviously, you know, I see people that they have seen 8 to 10 other practitioners. They've been in pain, you know, average, I would probably say somewhere around 9 to 16 years. The person that was in the most pain, I think, was for 25 years. She broke her kneecap in a car accident in Barcelona. You know, was 55 and she still had back pain. She couldn't get rid of it. And the whole thing was that, you know, you create unfavorable patterns. You have one leg that's not working well, the other leg that's working okay. You get overcompensation, you get pain. And everybody wants to just look at the back as it's the focal point. You know, it's $100 billion a year industry. And to me, to not look at the whole body from a perspective of this fascial net, that everything is connected to everything, it just slaps you in the face every single time somebody goes somewhere for joint pain, and you have the smartest people in their profession that can't figure it out. They can't figure it out. You go to the car, you go to a car dealership, or you go to a mechanic. If your car's not running, they run a report and say it's the carburetor. They fix the carburetor and your car's fine. You have knee pain, you go to the you know, knee pain specialist somewhere in the westernized medical system, and this guy, that's all he does is knees, or this girl, that's all she does is knees, and they can't figure out where it's coming from, you know. And to me, it's just how hard is this? Press somewhere north or south of the knee, see if you find anything that's tender, tight, sore, and get in there, apply a little bit of pressure, untangle that web, get circulation going back. It's interesting, because out of everything that I've done, the main thing that you realize about the human body is that if we lack space, you get pain, you get problems, and sometimes even death. You know, talk to someone who had an aneurysm.
Yeah.
Talk to someone who had a blood clot, maybe had to get their leg amputated, or their foot, or their toe, right? We look at the end of a capillary, and it's literally the size of one blood cell. So when we get pain problems, when we get adhesions, when we're sitting at a desk, or when we're laying brick, or, you know, if we're playing a game like baseball, you know, Nolan Ryan, you pitched for 40 years. These repetitive motions that we go through really just start to coagulate a lot of life force in the body, you know. And we go to somewhere in the westernized medical system, and they literally want to take a movement problem and fix it with chemicals, you know, or surgery, or you know, cortisone shots or something like that. And those two things just don't align with me. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I tell people all the time that the issue with the body is movement. The body, when it's not moving, is stagnant. Stagnation causes blocked energy. Blocked energy causes disease, and disease is, at the end of it, is what takes us out. So the average person out there right now, what are you seeing? Like, let's talk about what you've seen, like, change in the last 4 or 5 years in people's bodies, because there has been a change in the way that people present themselves when they show up. What have you been seeing that's different that let's
just
wasn't there?
Talk about liver meridians. Let's talk about gallbladder meridians. Let's talk about bladder meridians, heart meridians. I mean, the amount of fear that's been propagated in the world in the last 2 to 3 years almost, you know, it's psychological warfare, right? So if you're not prepared, if you don't know very much about health, you very much will be one of these people who are just afraid of anything. You'll be spraying down your groceries, having somebody deliver it, you know, and then spraying it down with Clorox in your kitchen or something like that before you touch the packages. And people don't understand that with human beings, that's not just a psychological mind fucking that you're getting. Okay, that is all going to transfer into emotional energy and problems in the body that's going to attach to organs, that's then going to create pain and problems in our meridian aspects that, you know, the Chinese found and knew about for the last 4,000 years, but we still need to get MRIs and things like that and look inside the body. And well, the organ looks okay, everything's fine. We don't know why you have pain or you have problems. But if we look at the meridians and we start working along these areas, or we start taking supplements like fascial flow, right? Like the curcumin, the power curc. When we start taking things like desiccated liver, or maybe just eating some liver in our diet, taking the desiccated gallbladder from, you know, Liver King's ancestral supplement line, whatever, that's not an endorsement, but as in products still are, they're good. You know, I have recommended them to my clients when they have these issues and they've helped. But you can look at essential oils, things like that. And man, you know, just the amount of liver problems that I've been seeing, especially during the pandemic. You know, a lot of my clients, they're seemingly very wealthy, and they realize, well, I don't have anything to do, don't have to take the kids anywhere, and they start drinking at 11 a.m. in the morning, and it's great. And then that becomes a habit, right? And instead of just drinking maybe one glass of wine every night, now they're having a bottle in the morning, and then, you know, one or two glasses in the evening. So liver, gallbladder, bladder, you know, it's just, it's been pretty rampant. It's been pretty rampant. And, that's not even to talk about the people that have had the vaccine, where they come in and they realize they made a mistake and now they're panicking because they don't want to be the next one, right? So regardless of what you see about the vaccine, that's just my anecdotal evidence that I see in my practice, helping people with their pain and their problems.
Yeah, yeah. When you say in your practice, I mean you've worked on some of the top people in the world. I was just saying, you were working on Alex Rodriguez a couple months ago. You work with a bunch of UFC fighters. Who's out of curiosity, who's the toughest person that you work on?
The toughest person that I work on. That's a tough question, man. Was that?
Or have worked on, or
that I that I'm currently working on or have worked on? You know, nobody really comes to mind because everybody really deals with pain in their own way. But I guess when it comes to maybe issues and the amount of resolve that they show when I'm working on them, it would probably be Michael Chandler. He's a top 5 welterweight in the UFC, or lightweight, I'm sorry, in the UFC. He's in the 155-pound class. You know, he's had some pretty nasty things in his body, and I've worked on him. Face has gone purple, and he just sits there and tries to breathe through it, you know? So definitely he would probably stick out.
So when so a lot of people there, I mean, there's still people that don't understand that meridians exist. I mean, yeah, I mean, even in the medical world, I think it's just generally, I mean, we are licensing and paying with insurance for acupuncture and Chinese doctors.
Yeah.
I mean, that means that it exists. So when you say a liver meridian, for somebody who doesn't understand that, what do you see? What are the symptoms? What are the problematic
So you're going to
things
have right side abdominal pain, okay, right underneath the rib cage, especially if you eat a fatty meal or something like that. Typically when the liver's going, the gallbladder has already gone, right? And the gallbladder gets stressed, liver can't really do its job that well. So we start to get this uncomfortable feeling or maybe pain due to inflammation, and then you pinch that phrenic nerve, right? So the phrenic nerve is coming down actually from the sympathetic side of our autonomic nervous system, our vagus nerve. So you'll get a lot of pain on the right side neck, right trap, right rhomboid even. You can roll on it, you could dig in there, you could get acupuncture if you want, and it's still not going to release. And then we're looking at pain down the right inner portion of the leg all the way to the big toe. You know, you might start with knee pain, pain in your hip flexor, your groin, You get in there, maybe you get the manual therapist in there, and you know it's all chunky and lumpy, and they don't know why it's not releasing. For years, you know, I did some of that stuff, and I would get the tissue to release because my energy work was good, but then 2 or 3 weeks later, they'd come back and it would be the same thing. And then when I found out about meridians, you start to realize that you were just missing a piece of the puzzle. So if you've been in kind of like a very fearful state, if you're getting that pain underneath your right side rib cage, you know, into your right abdominal, right groin, going all the way down into the right big toe, somewhere along there, you want to start eating some liverwurst. You want to start taking some desiccated liver, just having liver. A lot of my clients, what I do is I set them up on a challenge, 30 days of liverwurst. So there's a company in the United States called US Wellness Meats, and they have an absolutely phenomenal liverwurst. I tell them, you know, buy 6 or 7 of those. They're, I think, something like $15, and have a quarter of the stick every single day. And then typically, you know, 10 to 14 days in, a lot of their pain starts to resolve. I've had people that have gotten blood work done, you know, shown elevated liver fatty acids and elevated liver enzymes, and they've went and got MRIs and it shows that the liver's inflamed. And one of my clients, the doctor told me he had 5 years to live probably. And just with body work and liverwurst, he ended up going back to the doctor. Everything was cleared up. And, you know, it's stuff like that where I stand by the statement of there's nothing that human beings can make to look inside the body when it comes to pain that will be able to compete with the nerve endings, the 4,000 nerve endings at the end of each finger and thumb. You know, it's just nothing's going to compare to touch.
You know,
hold on, Gary.
That's a really good point. People,
my iron is too high. Can I eat liver?
Yeah.
Yes, you should definitely be eating liver every single day, because what you're lacking is bioavailable copper. Okay, bioavailable copper allows iron to be more digested and assimilated by the body. Okay, so if you don't have enough bioavailable copper in your body, this becomes a problem with a protein called ceruloplasmin, okay? And then also it becomes a problem with your body being able to store iron, put iron in its storage facility in the body so it floats around in the blood, okay? And then what does everybody say? Oh, go and give blood, you know, in order to get it out. You can also take alpha lipoic acid at the same time. And then there's another antioxidant called apocyanin, APOCYNIN. The same thing. Somebody's asking about anemia. Same thing. It doesn't have anything to do with iron. It has everything to do with copper not being on hand in the body. Okay, you don't want to take any type of vitamin that is copper. All right. You have to either have liverwurst, okay, or you can take apocyanin if you have too much iron in your blood, or alpha lipoic acid, about 600 milligrams a day, okay?
So this conversation is coming up quite a bit. I mean, this was from my clinical days. You know, I've done 50,000 lab tests on people, and I've gotten to know them over a decade. What we found was there's legitimate deficiencies over time, but we're finding that the majority of people right now are having deficiencies in iron or anemic or not absorbing their absorption issues. And we're finding out, like right now, like after testing, the majority of people are deficient in silica. And once we put silica in, then their body, without silica, the body can't absorb the minerals. And without the minerals, nothing else is going to happen. So it's being depleted out of them by the air that they're breathing every day and by their food. So when somebody says, and what for people who don't know, copper is what controls the electricity in our body. And So basically, the first thing I tell people to do is, like I say, eat something liver, like take liverwurst or a homeopathic. But the second thing first thing is to try some silica. Just get some diatomaceous earth, 2 teaspoons a day to 5. And usually within a week or two, most people who are deficiencies start to compound because their body's not absorbing. And you're seeing that a lot too, right? With malabsorption. What did it show up like for you? Like when somebody's malabsorbed, what does it look like
Pale
when they come
skin,
in, they get on your table?
definitely to be having some dryness either in the scalp or at the feet. Okay. I don't know what they're called. I'm not sure what they're called, but you'll get little bumps lower down around your ankle. It almost looks like permanent chicken skin. Okay, that's a clear deficiency in, you know, pretty much everything. Okay, because the liver is not being able to do its job to pump blood all the way down into the feet. A lot of people think that the heart is only responsible for pumping blood. It's not. The liver has a lot to do with pressure, and the calves also help pump blood back up. Okay. Liverwurst is not a plant.
There's a good talk.
Okay. Liverwurst is meat. It's Liverwurst.
Yeah, and somebody asked about my iron being too high. This is one of the cases. If your iron's too high, most likely it's just dysregulation. First thing I would do is mineralize your body, silica, diatomaceous earth, or the next thing is get some minerals like Irish sea moss.
Also, like I said, the apocyanin and the alpha lipoic acid. 600 million alpha lipoic acid would probably be the easiest one, but still, even if you're lowering the amount of iron that's in your blood, what you're doing is you're putting a Band-Aid on. You need to get the copper into think about, you know, we have too much iron in the blood. What does iron do out when it's in the atmosphere? It rusts, it oxidizes. Copper protects your body from oxidizing the iron and it becoming rusty, okay? And then creating problems in your body. Everybody's asking, what else can I do? Nobody likes liver, okay? Everything like that. These are what I call, what can I get away with questions, okay? I don't care if you got to put a whole jar of salsa or hot sauce or barbecue sauce, or just find a delicious recipe for liver, okay? There's no other supplement. You don't want to take copper supplements, anything like that, okay? You need bioavailable copper from a nutrient-rich piece of meat or organ, okay? So no other questions about what else can I take, or I don't want it. Milk thistle somebody put in is going to help your liver detoxify. It's an AMPK stimulator. It's absolutely phenomenal. But guys like Gary and I, we are about permanent fixes, okay? We are not about putting Band-Aids on the body. You can take alpha lipoic acid and then the Irish sea moss and everything else, the silica, the diatomaceous earth for the rest of your life. But wouldn't it be nice just to kind of, you know, get in front of it and correct the problem in your body rather than just trying to make it or mask it, right?
Yeah, I mean, permanent solution. So the permanent solution is that you can basically get everything you need from your food if you move your body and you keep movement and breath and healthy. I mean, people all the time, what I get all the time is they want a new supplement, they want a new workout, or say they want a new diet or something like this. But if people would just move their bodies, and we, like when we did our reset, we didn't have any supplements. We literally did it with silica and minerals because I wanted to make sure I'm mineralized, but I wanted to see how long does it take me to reset my body without anything. And it was the best experience I've ever had because I went supplement free, where I've had supplements for 35, almost 40 years straight. And what I found the surprising thing was I had been consuming a lot of supplements, probably about $400 to $600 a month. And I probably did that for about 30 years straight. And when I took my break off of it, my body had a rest, because what people don't realize, I think, is that if I eat 10 pounds of food and water, I'm going to vacate out 10 pounds of food and water. that means that the actual food and water isn't doing anything for me, but giving me information, because 100% of the material is used. So I'm not like taking protein from a steak and putting it into the muscle. My body's producing what it needs to build, and it's using that as information to get it there. And this is where the, you know, more isn't always better. Right. This is why homeopathics work. So what do you tell people? Here's a good one. And I'm still working this out myself, because I've been plant-based for 1.5 years. And this is the biggest experiment in my life, because up until 1.5 years ago, I could tell you any time of the day how much protein I'd consume or how many carbs, how many fat. So it was a big transition for me, and I'm having a completely different experience in my body. But when somebody is a vegetarian or a vegan, what do you
apocyanin and alpha lipoic acid? You know, actually start consuming whey protein, and then also taking a liver supplement, a desiccated liver for her liver, just because she was very, very much overweight, and she realized after talking to the doctor the problems that she was having with her liver. Okay, but that's few and far between. Two things: alpha lipoic acid, and then apocyanin, APOCYNIN. Apocyanin is kind of hard to track down. You can get it off of eBay. I've gotten it, tried it, totally safe. Alpha lipoic acid is everywhere. Okay, that will help tremendously. And all that is a fatty acid, so you don't really have to worry about it coming from an animal or anything like that.
Okay, so there's you've been using fascial maneuvers now. I remember it was while I was coming up to the retreat center, I took you through your first fascial maneuvers routine. And as a practitioner, when you're doing that, like, what was your journey into doing movement-based work in addition to therapy table work? What did that present for you? What were the things that you went through?
Honestly, man, it was hard. And I know that you would probably want me to say something else, but you understand, because in your practice, people want to come in and they want the pressure. They love the pressure. It's the pressure that made them feel good, and that's all they know. So when they come in and you're like, hey, come and do these maneuvers, they're like, whoa, 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 like, it's cutting into my table time, okay? And I actually lost a client because of it. Didn't really matter much to me, all right? But I was surprised because, you know, people come, they know, like, and trust you. I mean, I was charging between $250 to $500 an hour for my services. So people don't mess around when they come to me. They know that I can do a lot for them. So I figured that if I'm changing up my routine a little bit, people would automatically just start to trust me. But you start to realize that all they're addicted to is the pressure of the therapy, right? So now all of a sudden you start asking them to create their own pressure, which is going to help them more. Okay. Big difference, big difference between active and passive pressure, right? You lay on a table, that's not an active movement type. That's a restful position, right? So the body's going to hold itself. And I tell people all the time, especially when they're doing mobility work, when I show them how to do mobility work with balls, bars, bands, things like that, your fascial system is going to orient itself when you are in different positions. So when you're standing, okay, the whole body is tense, right? If I'm kneeling, my calves aren't doing too much. They're going to be really soft, okay? If I sit down then on my heels, my quads and my glutes really aren't going to be doing too much, or my hamstrings or my calves or my feet. I'm going to be holding myself up through my hip flexors, my pelvis, and the rest of my upper body. So when you are in different positions, fascia is going to orient itself differently, okay? So when we look at pressure, and I'm working on you on the table, it's a lot different, let's say, if I'm working in a rhomboid, than you leaning up against the wall and applying pressure with a ball. Because what ends up happening is now you are in real life mode, we call it, right? Your body is standing up and you are doing a active release rather than a passive release. So when my clients would come in and I'd say, okay, I'd tear down the table from the last client, I'd put it in the corner, and I'd be like, put your right hand on your left shoulder and your left hand underneath your right shoulder, turn your head to the right, and I want you to do this. They're like, wait a minute, like this is cutting into my table time. I come here to get pressed on. And then I have to help them understand that by you opening up your own tissue in an active manner, opening yourself up from the inside out, now the time that I have on the table is amplified. And it was absolutely incredible because clients that I had been seeing for 10 years, they had issues in their body still that my magic touch couldn't release, but it was not causing them any pain. You could see it was a structural problem. You could see it plain as day. If you were a good body worker, if you were a normal person, you just think that they're okay. But when I started to institute them doing fascial maneuvers before getting on the table, those long-standing adhesions melted away in a matter of minutes. And that's when I realized that I knew that there was something about this, even if you're doing it without the pressure aspect. But when you combined it with skilled hands on the table, you know, I really don't think that there's anything you can't open up in the body or anything that you can't really return to homeostasis.
Well, that's, I mean, I'll confirm that. I mean, we've been, we still work in teams when we work. There's 3 of us, usually minimum. So it's a little different than the one-on-one practitioner work. But collectively, in between 20 and 30 minutes, we can produce more results than we used to on 3 to 5 table sessions when there's 3 of us addressing the body. Because what we're doing when the 3 of us touch the body, you're doing a fascial maneuver. What you're doing is you're restricting the outside of the body. So when you breathe, it creates internal pressure. And that's the soft pressure that's going anywhere. When we constrict you over top and then tighten a bit more, every breath you take is getting the minute fibers of fascia adhered to the bone and the liver and all the organs and the layers to start to open up. Because if I constrict my lungs, the breathing is the highest priority. So as soon as I breathe, my inside of my body has to accommodate to open the lungs. So all of this, including the diaphragm, opens up in the very first minute.
I tell people all the time, you know, fascia is the boss in the body. But then fascia only has one boss, okay? And that's the breath. So if something is stuck and you're in a fascia maneuver and you're really, one of the biggest things that I constantly got to harp on my clients, or when I'm teaching people for the first time, you need deep panic breaths. I want you filling those lungs like you never did before. And like you said, when we're in a tight position and you're taking these really deep breaths, what ends up happening is we create that internal pressure, and things that are stuck are now being told you have to move. Where if we don't ever reach that point, let's say an exercise, or if we don't exercise and we just sit at a computer, you know, lay around the house all day, then that adhesion is just going to sit there unimpeded and unchallenged. And the body's just kind of going to protect it. And it's going to get worse. And then in 15 years, you know, you have some type of pain somewhere or a problem with an organ. So really it comes down to, yes, fascia very much is the CEO of movement in the body. But there's kind of like this higher up, this unaccounted for boss, which is our breath. And when we breathe, fascia has to move. It has no choice. No choice.
That's a really good point. Now, we have a lot of people still on the pH balance and stuff like this. So I wanted to actually say something. What people don't realize is that if you get angry, your body becomes acidic right away. Adrenaline, norepinephrine, and cortisol, boom, in your system. It don't matter what you eat, don't matter if you're eating fruit, doesn't matter if you're a vegan or you're a carnivore. If you are angry or you're scared and you're eating, your body is already dysregulated, because as soon as those hormones go off, for the next 4 to 6 hours, your body is no longer digesting or processing all the bloods and the lymphs. And what, so we have everybody worried about, and this is one thing that I've noticed. You've got everybody worried about a diet type. Like, I'm paleo, I'm vegan, I'm carnivore. And I'm like, honestly, get over it. The body needs rotation. It doesn't matter what you do. If you do the same thing to the body over and over again, it stops being stimulated. That's why we use a poison to create, like alcohol, to create an effect. Or we use like a toxin in medicine to create an effect. The body is meant to adapt. And what I find is the hardest thing is people, because we have people coming in all the time, and he McGraw, you were there. It's some of the most elite athletes and people in the world, but they're doing everything right and nothing's working. I mean, they do everything. And they take every IV, every workout, everything like that, but they're still in pain, either in their body, their emotions, their mind, or their perceptions. They're in pain somewhere. And this is what I say to people all the time. If you think you're going to get out of pain and you're not going to address your emotions, this year is going to be a really messy year for you. And this is one thing I want to get across, because people do all the good work and then they're scared or they're angry or they're frustrated all day long, and nothing's going to work at that point. As a matter of fact, if I get angry, my body tightens, my shoulders roll forward, my head goes forward and down, my breathing actually goes shallow, so that I produce adrenaline, because that's what that's the whole mechanism of the body. It's like we have this magical computer here, and we think that we're smarter than a computer.
I tell people all the time, well, do you think you're smarter than 400 million years of evolution? And they're like, yeah, probably not. Okay, stop putting ice on your inflammation then and your swollen knee. Like, just stop it. The inflammation's there. It's trying to do something, or it's pointing to something. And for some reason, we think that ice is just going to help it, when we understand that it's just a great placebo effect. That's all it is. So there's
yeah, it takes out the pain. Yeah. It takes out the pain. That's it. And as a matter of fact, it causes the tissue a harder time to circulate. And so, yes, I mean, I love hot cold contrast, but for pain, for like an injury, the first thing I do is get the fascia moving, get the blood moving, because I have people that have a sprain they haven't walked on in like a week. And within 5 or 10 minutes of working with the fascia on their foot, ankle, and calf, they can walk on it without any pain. And that's consistent. Yeah. I mean, I'm surprised when it doesn't happen. So it's much different than the way people think. Now, what do you feel right now is the biggest challenge for people that are currently working on people, like practitioners? What are they dealing with right now that they could change in your journey? You went from being a table worker to combining table work with motion work. So how would somebody do that? What are they facing? What outside of the clients who don't
I think I'm understanding the question correctly. For me, Gary, it's just not getting too polarized in any one specific ideology. For me, when clients come in, I mean, they'll text me and say, hey, I have knee pain. Can I come and see you? Yeah, sure. Here's my address. This is what it costs, and here's the time. I will never ask them about their medical history, nothing like that. They show up, and I probably have about 13 to 15 different techniques or solutions in my toolkit when they show up, okay? Where you go to a chiropractor, maybe you get a little bit of stem heat, they crack you up, and you're out of there, right? The chiropractor is just looking at the spine and his ability to sublux or unsublux the vertebrae in order to get somebody right. And I asked people, what is connected to the spine but muscle tissue? Does the spine just sublux itself? No. More than likely, we have some tight overcompensatory action going on, okay, in the body. Let's release that tissue first. Well, how do we do it? There's a bunch of different ways. You can do it yourself. You can get down on you know, any type of hard object. You can go see a manual therapist. To me, you just cannot get stuck in any one way. And unfortunately, especially for a lot of people in the United States, your education stops the minute you graduate and go get a job. You might have to learn the system of wherever you're at or whatever, but there's not too many people that get curious and say, this isn't working the way that it should. This person has an ACL tear and they've been here for 18 months. Like, that's a really long time for that to heal. Should we try something else? Right? And it's, oh, no, just, we got to stick. I mean, I worked at a physical therapy clinic and that's what they did. That's what they did. The parents almost sued the guy. The kid couldn't walk up 2 flights of stairs because his knee hurt so bad. He had an unhappy triad, actually. Okay? So there's a tear in the ACL, MCL, and PCL. Terrible hit, football player. Okay? His parents were so upset that they trained this kid's knee into oblivion, where his quad and hamstring were so incredibly tight, it was ready to pull the joint apart at the next movement. I started doing some very light massage. The kid's screaming on the table, sweating. Parasympathetics are going. Face are purple, eyes are bloodshot. He gets up, he starts moving, and he's like, I can move my knee again. And this was back in 2005, okay? The parents are like talking to the owner. How do you not know? Like, he has a scholarship to Arizona. He's got to go, you know, get his education, and we can't pay for this stuff, and blah, blah, blah. To me, you need to know when to say when and be like, let's look somewhere else, or let's find something else. Let's do a little bit of research. Let's try something else. You can't get polarized and stuck in any one way of doing something, especially if you've reached an impasse, right? You just got to be curious enough. And unfortunately, we live in a litigious society, right, where people are afraid, oh, you know, I can't try this because it's not in the manual that I got when I got hired. Well, when you treat people from a position of fear, you're never going to be able to truly help them, right?
You know, I can tell you. So fascia is emotionally sensitive. When somebody walks into a room and they're negative and you can feel that energy, like I always ask people, especially scientists, like, what's the mechanism that I know that they're angry across the room? Like, is it a chemical? Is it pheromone that goes out in the air? It's the energy, and that's, you know, and that's conductor. Our fascia is the same chemical composition as a quartz crystal. We're silicon. So that amplifies signal. That makes sense. We have bones which conduct signal. We have fascia which amplifies it, and we have this field around us. And then furthermore, inside, when something comes into that field, I can sense it. But the mechanism that doing that is actually the fascia. And the more open I find personally, the more open my fascia's got, the bigger that field is. Like, and it's weird the way that it works. So I can tell you, for me, like if I was doing this, right? Like I was doing my eye movements, right? I can track my eye back to here. I can actually have my peripheral back there, but physically I can't see that far. So how does the peripheral go there? What happens is that if I took out your eyes don't really see. What they do is interpret energy, and they provide a picture in the brain. But I can do that through words, and then when trained, I can do that by touching your energy. That's what happens when somebody loses a sense, like sight or touch, or sight or hearing, and then the other one builds up. Building our fascial sense, our sixth sense, is what I actually attribute to why athletes are, let's say, like the professional athletes, the superstars, they just go like that and they catch it. That's what it is.
You know, that's a big problem right there that you talked about, Gary, because now you're talking about things that we can't see. So technically, for like 95% of the population, they don't exist, right? And the fact of the matter is that I ask people all the time, I tell them 2 things. Number one, frequency and matter are the same thing. Okay, we've separated them for such a long period of time. We think that A frequency is a wave and you can't see it, and matter is something tangible. When matter is a frequency that's moving slow enough for us to interpret, for our body senses to interpret. So that's number one. Number two, I say, what were you before you were born? And they're like, I don't know, a spirit. What are you going to be when you die? I'm going to go back to being a spirit. What are you really here then? What are you really being here? You're a spirit that used to live and interpret frequency and energy solely. Now you're in this big meat pack and you don't believe in anything that you just said, right? You don't believe in anything. Gary's off his rocker. He's crazy, okay? But they can receive text messages. They can scroll through there. They know that their phone is sending a signal because something's happening. They can see it. I didn't have that text message 5 minutes ago. So clearly, when my wife, girlfriend, friend, whatever, they typed something in their phone and hit send, that frequency sent a wave into my phone. That's tangible. I know that that's real, okay? But when you talk to somebody about EMFs or pulsed electronic magnetic fields or anything about 5G or anything about feeling energy in a room, remember the first time I came to you to get work done, within 3 minutes of being on the table, you asked me, you're like, what do you do? I said, I actually do body work. And you're like, really? You just leaned over and you're like, can you feel energy? And I'm like, yeah, of course. And you're like, you got it, man. You got it. You know, and I'm like, nobody ever asked me that before, no matter who I worked on, whether they were a physical therapist, doctor, neurosurgeon, you know, another manual therapist. Nobody ever asked me that. But there was like, I want to say 2 or 3 years into doing body work. I never paid attention to it before, but all of a sudden I start applying pressure to somewhere in the body and I feel this light buzzing under there, this light vibration. I'm like, what the hell is that? And as I work on it longer and just hold the pressure there, it starts to die out. And then all of a sudden the person I'm working on, they're like, huh, I don't feel any more pain. And I just started to be like, what is this? Like, I went from working with muscle to working with fascia to then realizing it's just energy. And when you try to really hammer that point home with somebody, unless if they are not in the same space, understanding that everything around us is frequency and energy, no matter if it's hard or if you can't see it, you kind of get these really weird looks, you know, and it's kind of like, oh, okay, like you totally lost me there. And now all of a sudden you're the weird dude and whatnot, which I'll be. I don't really care, you know, I'm strong enough in what I know and what I feel. And there are some clients that I see where, you know, it's not even just about their spirit, it's that their central nervous system isn't even ready for the gifts or the tools that I have to present them with their problem. They're so stuck in being an object, they're so stuck in just being matter, you know, that they can't see past anything else. They think that it's the only game in town. One of my clients, I can't remember what we were talking about, but I was like, oh man, I want to go to Gettysburg one year because that whole place is haunted and I just want to see like old like Civil War ghosts and whatnot. He's like, oh dude, don't talk to me about that. Don't talk to me. I'm like, why? What's wrong? And he's like, I don't do well, man. I don't want to hear anything about no aliens or ghosts or nothing. And I'm like, bro, like, if you think that we're the only game in town, that's super boring. You don't think that aliens exist or another life form or a ghost? And like, to me, it just makes life that much more fun, that much more exciting. Now, do I want a poltergeist like whipping cups at my head while I'm in my home? No. But to me, just being able to go somewhere or hear something or watch Ancient Aliens, like, to me, something like that, it's hope in knowing that we are not the only game in town, you know, because that's pretty sad if we are.
Well, so let's take somebody asked, well, how do you explain this to somebody who's not spiritual, right? And first of all, explaining a concept to
It's
somebody who is,
it's
it's
an
like talking
oxymoron because they are a
so
spirit. They were a spirit and they will be a spirit, but they're not spiritual, right? So it's like, dude, you it's stuff like that where you
it's
can't
like
deny
denying
it. You can't deny it.
so
Nobody made you out of
here's
Play-Doh. Nobody made you out of Play-Doh. Okay, God, Allah, Jesus, like whoever you want to call your deity, even if you don't believe and you're just an atheist, where did you come from? Were you just consciousness just spontaneously combusted? I never used to be that guy that was super religious, but I know that a higher power does exist, and that higher power is what helped produce life and energy for every being on this planet. Like that's just something that, as a baseline, if spiritual or not, you could probably say, yeah, right?
so somebody
Yeah.
asked, what is a belief, right? It's funny because belief still needs evidence. So if I have a belief, I need evidence to
Yeah.
move it forward. And then I have another belief, I get more evidence and move it forward. Until eventually, one day, hopefully it becomes faith where I no longer need evidence. So belief is a desire to see an outcome in some way, or belief that it can happen, but I still need a little bit of evidence to get me there. And but faith is is not needing the evidence. And when people talk about us not being energetic beings, let's just look at what we do in space, military. I mean, we agree in quantum physics. We have quantum computers. We talk to quantum physicists, but then all of our life is based on Newtonian physics. And a satellite reads the energy signature of a person, which is 6 feet. That's the normal heart energy sphere of a person. That's why in military, it's when they're moving, it's 6-foot protocol. And so if a satellite can read your energy, then other things can read your energy. And you know what's crazy is that last year or 2 years ago, we had all the equipment in here. We have a machine that shoots photons. You put your fingers in, all one at a time. It shoots a laser, photons gas off. And then what it does is it creates and shows you what your entropic field looks like. And it also shows you where your chakra points are. And then you do something and you go back and you do it again and you can see the realignment. Now, this is Russian equipment, and it's been used worldwide. I mean, they even have some of this equipment they're using FDA cleared. But people they want to believe that everything's physical because we're taught that. We've been grown up. We grew up in a society where we were taught that things were physical. I have to do it. I have to see it to believe it. I have to feel it. I have to touch it. But that's not true. And what I say to people all the time is that, like Chris, you've heard me say this. If Andrea was in a car accident and I got a text right here, and it said she passed away, your whole body would go into shock. It would be horrible. And then if I told you 10 minutes later, oh, is a different Andrea, and you can't believe me, your body would start to come out of shock. But those chemicals stay in your blood for 4 to 6 hours. And so it's a mere perception which changed the physiology of the body, which says to me then, why isn't that when we're working with the body, perception is the highest state of awareness? Now, we do this for Olympic athletes, visualize, perception, what is it? But on everyday life, we don't even touch it. And so people, I think this year are coming into, I find that people are becoming more open. They're more willing to have the discussion than they were before. And so you have a lot of guys out there that know you, and I know from being in the bodywork business and the medical business that they still feel mostly, for the most part, it's a physical thing. So when you're with it, you have two hats. You have this fat hat where you can talk about everything physical, but you have this other hat that says it's not just physical. There's a lot more that goes on to it. How do you separate those when you're working with people that aren't ready to
I
hear?
don't, man. Honestly, I'm a Taurus, bro. There's no lying in me. I can't really sugarcoat things. I'm a bull in a china shop, so I tell people exactly what I feel and I think. And if they're not ready to accept it, then they're not going to get better until they do. And because of how highly regarded I come down here in South Florida, when I do tell people certain things, they will take it to heart. You know, most of them do. The people that aren't ready, you know, that's okay. Maybe they have a couple more incarnations and then they'll be there. But really, I at this point of my career, I have a hard time separating the two. You know, I know that we talked about this in one of our meetings a long time ago, and my wife was right next to me and heard me say it. I told you guys, I was like, you know, I feel like my time is up here. I feel like I've done everything that I need to do on this earth, and now I'm just playing with house money. Because if something did happen, if I got like a terminal illness or whatever, I feel totally at peace. Like, okay, I'm going back home. That this is not home, you know. And a lot of people really they don't want to think about that, or they can't think about that, or they don't want to think about it until it actually happens. But really, when we give up the notion, when we have faith, like you said, that this is not the only game in town, I really feel that there's going to be a lot more peace on earth, and it's not going to be so much about what I think or what you think. But you know, I love at the end of Ram Dass's book, Polishing the Mirror, he says, I tell people namaste because to me it means that the light in you and the light in me, when we come together, it is going to shine as one. You know, so for me, when it comes to spirituality, whenever I'm talking to somebody else and they're not really there yet, really what I just feel like is I'm talking to a younger form of myself. Because that's the way when I was young. You know, you're in your 18, 19, 20, something like that. It's like, man, just give me a football and some weights and a beer, and that's all I need, right? And then you start to get older and you start to realize that there's this massive purpose behind life, and you're set out to try and find what yours is. And spirituality starts to come a lot more to the forefront.
So, the back pain Bible, when did
2016?
you write that?
Yeah, I just
people can buy
formulated a
that.
hardcover today. Didn't even know that you could do that on Amazon. So I found out a couple of weeks ago, put the hardcover out there. Don't think Amazon approved it yet. It's going through their process, but I also am making a hardcover for my Ultimate Guide to Joint Pains. That's the textbook. It's like 386 pages, 8.5 by 11. You know, so if people are interested in everything that I know, get that one. But for most people, the Back Pain Bible is also, you know, I think it's 387 pages, but that's a 5.5 by 8.5 book. So a little bit smaller in size, but same thickness. That is going to have, that's kind of like my dissertation right there on not just back pain, but the body, because the back is this bridge, right, from the lower body and the upper body. It's $100 billion, I'm sorry, $100 billion a year problem for the westernized medical system. So it's huge, you know, and that's why it took so much time and effort to put a lot more into that.
You know, it's funny. The $100 billion problem. There's also another 100 billion. That's the nerve endings in your brain. But the reason why we have a $100 billion problem is because we're using the brain to figure it out when there's 100 trillion nerve endings in your fascia. So, so we're using the brain to try and figure out the fascia, which you know, in my opinion, the more I learn about the body, I'm learning stuff still today, every day. And the stuff that I've learned in the last year far surpasses everything I ever learned in practice. Because I think, Chris, this is coming up for you, honestly, is as you stop working on people every single day, and then all of the experiences that needed time to coagulate in your perception and your space, they start to coagulate. Like I can think, I mean, I remember every single person that I ever touched. I don't remember their names, but I remember their body parts and what's going on and how it touched and how it felt. And now what happens is that we see people today, they're trying to figure out specifically how to fix themselves and how to fix their body. And what I've noticed is that people that I'm going back to and working with now, we've given them the chance to take care of it themselves. They still have their routines. They still go to practitioners, but what it's doing is it's allowing people to feel confident that they can make a change or that they can actually heal themselves. And so really quickly for you, if you're a practitioner and you want to integrate fascial
I would
maneuvers,
start with the first three, totally twisted right and left, and then obviously anti-gravity. The first three are just going to unwind and then decompress the spine. Your clients will be a lot looser. They'll have a lot more space in their body when they get on the table. And yeah, I mean, that's what I did. I started with those, and I would have them practice at home. And then as they became affluent in those first three, then I started to send them videos for the next three. So they wouldn't do them in my home, in my office when they came, but they would just do the first three. And then at home, they were doing the first six. And then when they had no problem being able to do those, I gave them the last three. And then they had all nine. So it's kind of like a drip method, you know?
yeah, actually that works better. I like that approach. What I've noticed is that if I assess somebody, what's tight, what's not, what would I adjust, what wouldn't I, what do I have to work on? I do the first three, the stress reset, the first three maneuvers. I find that about 80 to 85% what I would have worked on is already gone. And so it allows me to get to the core issues really fast. And I mean, I still, in a different way, I can't wait to see you in person because I got to show you this. We found a new way to get more force in the body standing up than we could ever get on a table. More pressure using the body instead of an acute point. We're using all the compression of the body, and I can use literally just I can use this kind of pressure, and I get 10 times more pressure than I used to get when I was on a table.
Yeah,
I can't wait
to believe it, man.
That's going to be fun.
It.
Yeah. So Back Pain Bible is your the Back Pain Bible is your
Pain Bible
on Instagram.
I'm sorry, the pain.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, the Pain Bible. So people should follow the Pain Bible. They can go follow it right here from following this. Chris, you're not taking clients, right now, correct? Okay, so don't call him and ask for a session. I mean, I still get asked for sessions every day, about 400 to 500 sessions a day. People are asking for therapy. So, and it never stops. But and last thing for you is you've implemented fascial maneuvers in your life. How has your life changed? Like, what has it done for you as a person? Physically, how do you perform?
So one of the biggest issues for me was compression. You know, I come from a lifelong of playing sports, number one, a lot of collisions playing football when I was younger. But then I got into Olympic lifting. So it was a lot of heavy cleans and snatches, squats, deadlifts, I mean, you name it. And then around 2012, I got into CrossFit. Okay, so then I started doing CrossFit, which same thing, clean snatches, rope climbs now, rowing, biking, running, box jumps, I mean, you name it. What I started to have an issue with was just tight traps, tight neck, a lot of compression in the back of the head. So for me, anti-gravity was really just a godsend. It didn't work at the beginning when I was just doing it one time per day. And then one day I was vacationing with my family in Hawaii, and I was like, you know what? I have so much time, and then we had a beautiful spot right on the ocean. I would go right up to the very edge of the cliff, and 5 times a day I did anti-gravity. By the time I went to bed, I had the most restful sleep that I've ever had that night. The entire rest of the day, it's just like every time I did it, my perceived levels of stress inside of the body and outside of the body started to lower astronomically, okay? And that's when I realized this is just like anything else. I don't know, if you're a power lifter and your bench is weak, you got to bench more, and slow down on the deadlift and the squat. So I started to realize, like, okay, totally twisted, I feel good when I do it. Doesn't really feel like there's too much moving, but then I go and do anti-gravity, and I'm starting to perceive a lot less stress. And what I was doing, people come into my practice all the time. They have bulging herniated discs. What is that a problem of? Global compression. It's not just a back issue. It's not just a disc issue. You're literally being crushed from your nose to your toes down this way. So when we look at anti-gravity, you're literally actively pulling apart this global compression. And yeah, there are a lot of people that can't get into a full squat. Do it on a damn chair. Do it on a park bench. Do it at your workspace, wherever you can. Okay. I tell my clients, like, just do it. I don't care if you can't get all the way down like I can. So when I started doing it multiple times per day, that's when the floodgates opened. So I tell my clients all the time, find the one that makes the biggest change in you at the beginning. And I want you to do that 3 to 5 times a day. So, and you know, when you talk about relationships, like my wife does them, she did them while she was pregnant. They just, it helps to draw you down and rebalance you. And when you talk about, you know, being a spirit and everything like that, or being able to sense energy, we're all antennas, okay? And we're antennas for both positive and negative, right? Every cell is a battery. We got negative on the inside, positive on the outside, right? So if we're absorbing too much negative energy, too much stress, I tell people even too much good stress becomes distress. What do you mean by that? If you golf and play tennis, I guarantee you, you're going to have a problem from left to right. Why? Because you're swinging from right to left every single day. You play tennis on one day, you're swinging from right to left. You go play golf the next day, you're swinging from right to left. The body needs a break. The body needs balance. You need to start doing something that's going from left to right. Oh, we can do totally twisted, and that does it, right? So, I mean, we need balance in the body. You need to be able to release any type of stress that's being incurred. The way that most people get there is drugs and alcohol, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of practitioners, and at the end of my career, I was starting to drink a couple glasses of wine at the end of the day, and I used to only save it for the weekend, and then the accumulative stress of people's emotions, I didn't realize it were sticking in my body, and I just had to do it more and more. But anti-gravity, I take as and also I like what you just said. I really do. Do the routine, find the one that has the most impact, and do that 3 to 5 times a day. That is an excellent idea. I don't even know why I didn't think of that. Because you're right, there is one movement pattern that's going to work better. We tell people like we're doing swinger, one side versus the other. Like if you're an athlete and you're swinging this way, well then this is your left to right pattern. It's swinger the other direction.
I'll send you the bill for
and
that.
It creates
okay? that idea.
The royalties I use on that one, yeah. Yeah, Chris, you know, we're going to see more of you. Does that mean that, so you're not working anymore or not taking any more clients, you're changing the way you work? Does that mean that we're going to see more of you
I would
talking
love
and teaching
to, man.
and sharing?
I'm at the point in my life where I'm blessed enough to be able to not only want to teach rather than do, but just, you know, have the financial means to do so, where I don't have to rely so much on doing table work for income. And one of the biggest problems that I encountered in probably like the last 4 or 5 years was I would reach out to people on social media and be like, hey, you know, I can help you with that. And, you know, even somebody like Ben Greenfield, I hit him up and I was like, hey, man, I know what's going on with you. Like, I can help you with that. And I can guarantee you, he looked at my Instagram profile or my Twitter profile, and he was like, this dude has 52 followers. Like, there's no way that he can help me. So people just don't they ignore me. You know, it's crickets. And I was so busy doing. I didn't have time to be teaching. I didn't have time to be taking pictures and posting them or writing out long Twitter threads or anything like that. Because the fact of the matter that I was so inundated with clients, it got to the point where I needed 2 or 3 hits of some pretty heavy stuff just to get to sleep because my body was so wired and tired. My sympathetics were raging and my parasympathetics were nowhere to be found because I burned them out, you know? So that's what it comes down to, man. And now, obviously, I've been on the Mark Bell podcast a couple of times. I did some stuff with Joel Green, who's a fantastic follow for anybody interested in nutrition. And, you know, now I've done a couple of things with you as well. So I'm much more open to being able to have that time to teach and help people.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I love working with you and around you. You have a consistency with your hands that, I mean, everybody can do work, but there are just some people that are really gifted at it, and you're one of those people that has a consistency with the hands. And you know, I attribute it a lot to your calm demeanor, your ability to calm down in any situation. Because if I come into a body and I'm hot, they're going to be hot too. Chris, I really appreciate speaking to you today. I'm looking forward to getting to spend some more time now that you're not working as much. Maybe you can come on and hang out with us for a little bit and do some other things. I know you got babies going on now.
We had Nala on December 8th, so she's 4 weeks today. No, yesterday. I'm sorry. Yesterday was 4 weeks for her. So she's still getting used to this world. We're turning the corner on sleep. She slept, I think, the longest last night, like 5.5 hours, something like that. So gave my wife a little bit of a break. But it's definitely we're trying to get acclimated to this new routine over here.
Well, then, Chris, maybe I can tickle you on since we're live and everybody will hear this. Maybe we can do some more lives for all our people.
Yeah, I would love to, man. I would love to. Maybe if we even, you know, we do 4 different, one for back pain, one for shoulder pain, head, neck, and one for knee, one for ankle and foot, whatever you want to do, I'm in.
Yeah, let's do that. I mean, you have a lot of knowledge and you're really good at it. I'd like to see, and you're an awesome teacher. That's why I've been pushing you to teach since I met you. So looking forward to this year coming up. We'll get some time together. Say hi to Andrea and to both the kids. Looking forward to seeing you this year sometime for sure. And if you guys want to find Chris, you answer questions though. I know you're probably going to get a lot of questions once we start. We'll post this on our YouTube and stuff like that. So you can get to Chris through his Instagram's best way to answer.
If anybody has anything that's a little bit more lengthy, send me an email at rebuildingyou@proton.me. And the U is just the letter. So rebuilding, the letter U, and then @proton.me.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Chris.
Great to see you, Gary. Thank you. Have a great day.